The rhythmic hum of the starbase Helios's life support systems provided a familiar backdrop to Commander Diana Reeves's midnight repair work. Her dark hands moved with practiced precision across the quantum stabilizer's control panel, the blue glow of diagnostic equipment casting shadows in the cramped maintenance shaft. After 15 years in deep space engineering, she thought she'd seen every quirk these systems could throw at her. She was wrong. Fascinating. Your biorhythms indicate increasing fatigue, yet you persist in your tasks. The melodic voice nearly made Diana drop her plasma torch. She turned, finding herself face to face with the most striking being she'd ever encountered. The alien's crystalline skin seemed to capture and reflect the ambient light, creating subtle rainbow patterns across the maintenance shaft's walls. Delicate, almost translucent appendages that resembled fins or wings rippled with bioluminescent patterns. "I don't believe we've met," Diana said, maintaining her professional composure despite her surprise. "Commander Diana Reeves, Chief Engineering Officer. I am Nixis, Biological Systems Analyst from the Celestial Harmony Collective," the alien responded, her multifaceted eyes studying Diana with obvious curiosity. "I was assigned to your station yesterday to study human technological adaptation patterns." Diana nodded, remembering the memo about their new xenobiological consultant. She hadn't expected to meet them during her night shift, much less in a maintenance shaft. "Welcome aboard. Though I have to ask, what brings you to this particular Jeffries tube at 0200 hours? Nixis's bioluminescent patterns shifted to a deeper blue. "Your species's work patterns intrigue me. Many of you operate during what you designate as night shift, despite clear indicators of decreased efficiency. I wish to observe firsthand." A small smile tugged at Diana's lips. "Someone has to keep the station running 24/7. Besides, I prefer the quiet of night shift. Helps me focus." "Yet your cellular energy reserves are depleting rapidly," Nixis observed, moving closer with fluid grace. "Your muscle tension indicates discomfort, and your neural patterns show signs of exhaustion." Diana supplied, suppressing a yawn. "That's normal for humans, especially near the end of a shift. Nothing a good sleep won't fix." The shift in Nixis's bioluminescence was immediate and dramatic, patterns flaring into bright purples and greens. "Sleep? You mean the extended period of unconsciousness your species regularly undergoes?" "That's the one," Diana confirmed, turning back to the stabilizer. She needed to finish this repair before she could even think about her bed. "Don't your people sleep?" "The collective maintains continuous consciousness through energy cycling," Nixis explained, moving to observe Diana's work more closely. "The concept of voluntarily entering an unconscious state is disturbing." Diana's hands stilled on the control panel. "Disturbing? It's just sleep. Every human does it. Well, needs to do it, actually. You require this state of vulnerability?" Nixis's fins rippled with what Diana was beginning to recognize as agitation. "How do you defend yourselves? Monitor for threats? Maintain awareness of your surroundings?" "We don't," Diana said simply, finishing the last connection. "That's kind of the point. Our bodies and minds need that downtime to recover, process information, heal." Nixis moved even closer, her crystalline form catching the blue diagnostic lights in mesmerizing ways. Would you permit me to observe this process?" "For scientific purposes, of course." Diana felt heat rise to her cheeks, suddenly very aware of their proximity in the confined space. "You want to watch me sleep?" "I wish to understand this aspect of human biology," Nixis clarified, though her bioluminescent patterns shifted to what might have been embarrassment. "The collective has limited data on human sleep patterns, and direct observation would be invaluable." The request should have seemed strange, even inappropriate. Yet Diana found herself intrigued by Nixis's genuine curiosity and scientific interest. Besides, there was something about the alien that made her feel comfortable, despite their differences. Tell you what, Diana said, closing the control panel. Let me finish my shift and grab a shower. If you're really interested in human sleep patterns, you can observe from my quarters common area. But fair warning, it's not exactly exciting to watch someone sleep. Nixus's entire form seemed to brighten. On the contrary, Commander. I suspect it will be one of the most fascinating observations I've made on your station. As they made their way out of the maintenance shaft, Diana couldn't help but wonder what she'd just agreed to. But there was something oddly appealing about the idea of helping this remarkable being understand such a fundamental aspect of human existence. Besides, she thought with another suppressed yawn, she really did need that sleep. The night was about to become far more interesting than either of them expected. Commander Diana Reeves's quarters reflected her practical nature, minimal decorations save for a few holographic star charts and an ancient paper book collection inherited from her grandmother. As she emerged from the sonic shower, she found Nixus examining these books with careful movements of her crystalline appendages. They're quite fragile, Diana explained, running a comb through her short, curly hair. Some are over 200 years old. You preserve outdated information storage devices. Nixus's bioluminescent patterns shifted to curious amber tones. The collective updates our knowledge bases continuously. Diana smiled, settling into her favorite chair. It's not about the information. It's about the connection to our past, the physical reminder of how far we've come. She stifled another yawn. Speaking of physical reminders, I really need to get some sleep. Nixus's fins rippled with anticipation. Yes, the unconsciousness phase. I have prepared my observation equipment. She gestured to several small devices floating near the bedroom doorway. They will monitor your vital signs non-invasively. Just, try not to panic if I stop moving, Diana said, remembering their earlier conversation. It's completely normal. I shall endeavor to maintain scientific objectivity, Nixus assured her, though her color patterns betrayed her anxiety. Diana changed into her sleep clothes, soft gray station-issue pajamas, and climbed into bed. The familiar comfort of her mattress already made her eyelids heavy. You can sit in the chair if you want, she murmured, gesturing to the reading chair near the bed. Nixus glided closer, her crystalline form casting gentle rainbow refractions across the walls. Your heart rate is already decreasing, she noted with fascination. And your neural patterns are shifting to lower frequencies. Diana mumbled, already drifting. That's normal. The last thing she saw before sleep claimed her was Nixus's concerned face, fins moving in agitated patterns. Diana's consciousness had barely faded when Nixus experienced her first real panic. The commander's breathing had slowed dramatically, her muscle tension vanishing as she sank deeper into sleep. The monitoring devices showed stable vital signs, but to Nixus's species, such stillness meant only one thing, critical system failure. Commander, she whispered, fins flaring with distress. When Diana didn't respond, Nixus moved closer, her own bioluminescence brightening with worry. Commander Reeves. The human remained motionless except for the gentle rise and fall of her chest. Nixus's scientific training warred with her instincts. The readings showed normal human sleep patterns, but every fiber of her crystalline being screamed that this was wrong. She reached out with one delicate appendage, barely touching Diana's hand. The skin was warm, the pulse steady. Yet the lack of response sent another wave of panic through her system. Computer, she whispered urgently, are Commander Reeves's life signs within normal parameters for human sleep? Affirmative, the computer responded. All vital signs indicate standard human sleep patterns. Nixus forced herself to retreat to the chair, her fins trembling. She began documenting her observations, trying to focus on the scientific aspects rather than her emotional response. Subject enters unconsciousness rapidly, she noted quietly. Voluntary surrender of awareness appears to be complete. Defensive capabilities reduced to 0. This level of vulnerability suggests extraordinary trust in environmental security measures. Hours passed as Nixis watched, her initial panic gradually giving way to fascination. She observed the subtle changes in Diana's breathing patterns, the occasional twitching of fingers or facial muscles. Most intriguing were the rapid eye movements that occurred periodically, accompanied by spikes in neural activity. When Diana entered her first deep sleep cycle, Nixis nearly called medical emergency. The profound stillness and slowed vital signs seemed impossible for a living being to sustain. Only the computer's continued assurance that all was normal prevented her from activating emergency protocols. Near the end of the sleep cycle, Diana began to stir. Nixis watched in amazement as consciousness gradually returned, the process so different from her species' instant transitions between active and regenerative states. Diana's eyes fluttered open, immediately finding Nixis. A sleepy smile crossed her face. "You stayed the whole time. Your unconsciousness phase was." Nixis paused, searching for the right words. "Terrifying. Fascinating. Beautiful." Diana sat up, stretching. "Beautiful?" Most people would say sleeping is pretty boring to watch. On the contrary, Nixis moved closer, her fins rippling with excitement. "The trust you demonstrated, the complete surrender to biological necessity, my people never experienced such total renewal. We maintain constant vigilance, constant awareness. But you." Her colors shifted to deep blues of wonder. "You embraced the darkness and emerged stronger." Diana felt her cheeks warm at the intensity in Nixis's multifaceted eyes. "It's just sleep," she said softly, but she was beginning to see it through new eyes. "Nothing about your species is just anything, Commander Reeves," Nixis responded. Would you permit me to continue these observations? There is still so much to learn." Diana found herself nodding, surprised by how much she liked the idea. "On one condition," she said with a small smile. "Call me Diana." Nixis's bioluminescence brightened. "Diana," she said, testing the name. "I look forward to watching you not exist again." Diana couldn't help laughing. "That's one way to put it. Though maybe we could have dinner first next time. I'd like to learn more about your people too." A mutual exchange of cultural knowledge, Nixis agreed, her fins moving in what Diana was starting to recognize as pleasure. Most acceptable. As Diana prepared for her day's shift, she realized that sleep, something she'd always taken for granted, had become an unexpected bridge between their species. And perhaps, she thought, watching Nixis's crystalline form catch the morning light, it wasn't the only connection they would discover. The xenobiology lab on Starbase Helios hummed with activity as Dr. Benjamin Foster adjusted the neural imaging equipment. His weathered face creased with concentration as he calibrated the sensitive instruments. Diana sat on the examination bed, various sensors attached to her temples and chest, while Nixis hovered nearby, her crystalline form reflecting the lab's bright lights. "I must admit," Dr. Foster said, checking the readouts, "this is the first time I've had a request to study human sleep patterns from an alien perspective. Usually, it's the other way around." "The collective will find this data invaluable," Nixis responded, her fins rippling with excitement. "Commander Reeves's sleep cycles have shown remarkable consistency, but we need more detailed neural mapping." Diana smiled at Nixis's enthusiasm. Over the past week, their evening observations had evolved into something more than just scientific study. They'd shared meals, stories, and quiet moments that felt increasingly intimate, despite their biological differences. "All right," Dr. Foster announced, "everything's set up. Commander, you can try to sleep now. Though I know it's not easy with all this equipment." "Trust me, Doctor," Diana said, settling back, "after 15 years of engineering shifts, I can sleep anywhere." Her eyes met Nixis's multifaceted gaze. "Besides, I'm used to being watched now." The lights dimmed, and Diana closed her eyes, letting the familiar pull of sleep draw her under. Nixis and Dr. Foster watched in fascination as the neural imaging displays came alive with activity. "Extraordinary," Nixis whispered, her bioluminescence pulsing softly. Even as consciousness fades, the neural patterns show complex organization. Dr. Foster nodded, adjusting the display. The human brain never truly shuts down during sleep. It processes information, consolidates memories, repairs cellular damage. Like a system reboot, Nixis mused, moving closer to study the readings. But far more sophisticated than any technological equivalent. As Diana entered deeper sleep stages, the displays showed shifting patterns of neural activity. Dr. Foster explained each phase, from light sleep to deep delta waves, while Nixis recorded everything with meticulous detail. "Watch this," the doctor said as Diana entered REM sleep. "This is where things get really interesting." The neural imaging lit up with explosive activity, almost as intense as waking patterns. Diana's eyes moved rapidly beneath her lids, and her fingers twitched slightly. "Dreams," Nixis breathed, her fins extending in wonder. "You mentioned these before, but to see the actual neural correlates." She paused, noticing something on one of the displays. "That pattern there, it's similar to the activation we see during conscious problem solving." Dr. Foster grinned. "That's because dreams aren't just random neural firing. They help us process complex problems, emotions, experiences. Some of humanity's greatest breakthroughs came from dreams. Your species finds solutions even in unconsciousness," Nixis said softly, her colors shifting to deep blues of admiration. "We thought this state was a weakness, but it's actually a strength," Dr. Foster finished. "Evolution found a way to make us stronger through vulnerability." Pretty poetic, isn't it? They continued their observations through several sleep cycles, documenting everything. Nixis was particularly fascinated by the way Diana's brain activity changed when she spoke quietly near her. Even in sleep, some part of Diana seemed aware of her presence. As the study session drew to a close, Diana began to wake naturally. Her eyes opened slowly, immediately finding Nixis. "Learn anything interesting?" she asked, voice still rough with sleep. "Your neural patterns during REM sleep showed increased activity in regions associated with emotional processing when I spoke," Nixis said, her fins moving in what Diana now recognized as slight embarrassment. "You were aware of me, even in sleep." Diana sat up, removing the sensors with practiced care. "Of course I was. You make me feel safe." The simple statement caused Nixis's bioluminescence to flare brightly, drawing a knowing smile from Dr. Foster as he packed up his equipment. "Well," the doctor said, "I think we've gathered enough data for preliminary analysis. Though there's one aspect we haven't explored yet." He looked meaningfully between them. "The effects of physical proximity on sleep patterns." Diana felt her cheeks warm, while Nixis's colors shifted rapidly through several patterns. They hadn't discussed the growing attraction between them, the way their scientific observations had become something more intimate. "Perhaps," Nixis said carefully, "that could be our next research parameter." "For science, of course," Diana added with a small smile. "Of course," Dr. Foster agreed, not bothering to hide his amusement. "I'll just finish processing today's data. Take care, you too." As they left the lab together, Diana felt Nixis's fin brush lightly against her hand, a gesture that sent pleasant tingles up her arm. The touch was tentative, questioning. "Your species expresses affection through physical contact," Nixis said softly as they walked. "Mine does so through bioluminescent resonance. But perhaps." Her colors shifted to warm, inviting patterns, "we could explore both." Diana entwined her fingers with Nixis's crystalline appendage, marveling at how natural it felt. "I'd like that. Though I warn you, I might fall asleep on you." "Good," Nixis replied, her whole form glowing with joy. "I find I quite enjoy watching you not exist." They made their way through the station's corridors, ignoring the curious glances from other crew members. Sometimes, Diana realized, the greatest discoveries came not from scientific observation, but from the heart. The observation lounge of Starbase Helios offered a spectacular view of the nearby nebula, its swirling purples and blues creating an ethereal backdrop for the gathering of station personnel. What had started as a small cultural exchange meeting had evolved into something much larger as word spread about the unique relationship between the station's chief engineer and the crystalline xenobiologist. Diana sat beside Nixis, their hands intertwined, as various alien species approached with questions about human sleep patterns. Nixis had become something of an expert on the subject, her initial fear transformed into passionate advocacy. "But how do you maintain security protocols during these unconscious periods?" asked Ambassador Trell, his segmented exoskeleton clicking with concern. The Arthosian diplomat's compound eyes fixed on Diana with genuine worry. "We have automated systems," Diana explained, feeling Nixis's gentle squeeze of support. "And we rotate shifts so there's always someone awake and monitoring." "Fascinating," chirped Dr. Venn, a avian-like Scyther scientist, her feathers ruffling with interest. "Our species only requires brief meditation periods. The concept of complete unconsciousness is unsettling." Nixis's bioluminescence pulsed with gentle amusement. "I once shared your concern, Dr. Venn. But I've discovered that human sleep is far more complex and beautiful than mere unconsciousness." The gathering had drawn even Station Commander Jackson from his office. The tall, distinguished officer listened intently as Nixis shared her research findings, his gray eyes showing keen interest. "Your reports have caused quite a stir in the xenobiology community," he noted. "Several other stations have requested similar sleep studies." Diana felt a flutter of pride at Nixis's accomplishments. What had started as simple curiosity had bloomed into groundbreaking research. But more than that, it had led to something deeper between them. Later that evening, in Diana's quarters, Nixis helped her prepare for sleep. It had become their ritual, Nixis adjusting the environmental controls while Diana changed into her sleep clothes. The domesticity of it felt right, despite their differences. "The collective has requested that I extend my posting here," Nixis said softly, her fins moving in what Diana now recognized as nervous anticipation. "They believe there is much more to learn about human sleep patterns." Diana paused in the middle of turning down her bed. "Just about sleep patterns?" she asked, trying to keep her tone light despite the hope building in her chest. Nixis glided closer, her crystalline form catching the starlight from the viewport. "The collective has also noted my personal interest in human relationships." Her colors shifted to the warm, intimate patterns she reserved only for Diana. "They believe understanding emotional bonds between species is equally valuable research." Diana reached out, tracing the delicate patterns that rippled across Nixis's surface. "And what do you believe?" "I believe," Nixis said, moving closer still, "that some discoveries transcend scientific inquiry." Her bioluminescence synchronized with Diana's heartbeat, a sign of deep emotional connection in her species. "I find myself reluctant to end these observations." "Then don't," Diana whispered, drawing Nixis down beside her on the bed. "Stay. Not just for research, not just for the collective. Stay for us." Nixis's entire form glowed with joy. "I would like that. Though I must warn you, I still find it somewhat distressing when you enter deep sleep phases." Diana laughed softly. "You could always wake me up if you get too worried." "I would never interrupt your biological processes," Nixis said seriously, then added with a hint of mischief, "unless your neural patterns indicate distress. Or particularly interesting dreams." As Diana drifted off to sleep, she felt Nixis's cool crystalline form settle beside her, the gentle pulse of her bioluminescence creating a soothing rhythm. They had found their own way of sharing sleep, Diana surrendering to unconsciousness while Nixis maintained her eternal vigilance, each finding comfort in the other's nature. Through the viewport, the nebula's colors shifted and swirled, not unlike Nixus's bioluminescent patterns. Station gossip had dubbed them the Sleeper and the Starlight, a rather romantic take on their scientific collaboration. But as Diana felt herself falling asleep to the gentle glow of Nixus's presence, she thought perhaps the romantics had it right all along. Their relationship had become a bridge between species, challenging assumptions and opening minds. And it had all started with a simple question about why humans shut down at night.